it's actually quite sad because it's not just Dubai, it's Bahrain. You have Qatar, because I was supposed to fly through, or I am supposed to fly through Qatar in a few weeks. You have Oman, you have Kuwait. It's quite a disaster because a lot of these countries, I think, had an inclination to know that there might be something that might happen, but nobody was quite well prepared for it. And the very fact that in the first 2 days itself, friendly fire brought down 3 F-15s over Kuwait. And that was by the Kuwaiti army not realizing they are American forces. And thankfully, the pilots were not hurt. But on the other side, you have to kind of wonder all the permutations and combinations they're doing to justify these actions as being legal. And I think that is where the punching bag is. People like you and I, Nina, we've been talking about this Iranian regime being violent, repressive, and against women's rights. But at the same time, being Ukrainian, you would understand this. There is something called international law. You don't call for regime change and do it unilaterally. Then how does that make us different in any country than Russia, for example? So I think we'll be debating this ad nauseum.
I think it's the two coins, from another side, what I could see a lot in the Ukrainian as well media, that they believe that it's a good lesson to show to the world dictators that any regime could be put down. It started with Maduro, now Iran. And so to some people it gives hopes. But beside the hope, it gives a lot of problem with economy, right? And what we see right now with gas price increase over 50%, this is insane. Issue with oil, at least now we
Why do you think my
understand.
husband wants all the money back from the holiday? He's like desperate because
Exactly.
he's like, do you know what
Exactly.
our heating bills are
Bill.
going to be like? Oh my God.
Exactly. In the same time in Europe, what we observe right now this week, it's getting again to the cold weather, from some heat wave to the cold weather. I'm not sure if you had a heat wave in UK, but in Europe it was like kind of plus
16 degrees
18.
and sunny.
Yeah, and sunny. Yeah, and now it's again back to 5 degrees. So yeah, our bills would be insane. But as well, like there is a lot of changes with oil, right? That we should expect. Bad side of that Russian stock market is now booming positively because of all those issue. But from another side, we now understand what it was about with Venezuela.
So if you're a financial journalist and you're looking at this, the first thought is who's got the largest production capacity or largest capacity of oil in the OPEC countries? It is Venezuela. Because of sanctions, they haven't been able to produce as much as they'd like. Because of sanctions, they were not able to sell into the open market. And their biggest buyer was China. Do you remember that whole story of the Americans, seizing the accounts and then seizing the oil, which was bound for China? Now you kind of realize why they did that, because hang on a minute. Now you have OPEC, or OPEC's one oil producer that was supplying a lot to China. You have the Strait of Hormuz, which is the pathway that the rest of the OPEC has to literally use to get the oil out. Currently, pretty much at a standstill, because who's going to risk an oil tanker getting blown up by the IRGC, which is basically the Iranian Revolutionary Guard? But why wouldn't they blow it up, and why wouldn't they attack? The question is, they can always claim that, and they do claim that they were attacked first, which is why they have reacted. They have lost their supreme leader, Ayatollah Khomeini. And at this point, I think what may be underestimated is just how aggressive the reaction can be of both the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, the incumbents who still remain, who now we don't know who we're dealing with in Iran. We knew who we were dealing with before, but now if Donald Trump says he's killed off everybody who is going to be a successor, you may land up with a bigger problem of an unknown entity who may be far more radical, far more aggressive, and far more capable of damage, as you can see when you see the bombings into the Gulf countries that technically did not participate, but they do have US bases on their land. It's a horrible mess to be in. You've got India suddenly, Nina.
Actually, that's what I wanted to ask. That was very
Very weird.
interesting. Very weird and very interesting at the same time. Reaction of India and China. So let's talk about that too.
If you look at what China did for a long time was keep quiet. I mean, long time being 24 hours. They, along with Russia, really called the Security Council and, a meeting of the Security Council where they basically said this was illegal, et cetera, et cetera. And then they kept quiet. And then on Monday, they released a statement from the Foreign Ministry of China saying, we believe that this is illegal. We've said so. And the only way that we will solve this Middle East crisis and stop the world from going into an economic freefall, because remember, oil, gas, inflation, cost of living crisis, this affects everyone, not just one part of the world. It will affect the global south, it will affect Asia, it'll affect America, it will affect everybody. So the Chinese are playing grown up, which I found really interesting because they've been doing that a lot in the last year and a half. I thought that the Chinese were going to be the grown ups.
Same. But from another side, we have really interesting creation of India that we would not probably expect because of Palestine, but India literally said that they would support Israel, right? In this case specifically. What was the statement of Israeli leader?
The Indian leader. It was the Indian leader. He went to Israel on a flying visit just before all of this started. It was interesting timing because historically India has been very close to Iran, and that's where historically they've also got a lot of their oil. You also have this close relationship with Palestine over, since the Nakba in 1948. But in the last 10, 15 odd years, the government of India has moved closer and closer to Israel. This is the funniest thing that came out of the meeting. And I mean, you got to watch this video of Narendra Modi in Israel.
I had the good fortune to be the first Prime Minister of India to visit Israel. And I'm very happy to be here again, returning to a land to which I have always felt drawn. After all, I was born on the same day that India formally recognized Israel, September 17, 1950.
I don't know what his birthday had to do with supporting Israel, but I mean, Mr. Modi makes some interesting statements sometimes. But then he flew off to Canada and did a big Canadian deal. And that is the most interesting thing because India and Canada have had very cold relationships for the last couple of years. And Mark Carney was not the prime minister. It was Justin Trudeau that, Modi had a problem with. But Mr. Carney somehow has managed to impress both Beijing and New Delhi. So Mark Carney for the win.
But it makes a lot of sense for this deal right now because obviously it is a feeling, right, that the energy security is the most important that we could have along with overall world security. So yeah, this is definitely something to watch on fast.